All right, guys, I had a question about an update on our deep bedding system. So I've always been a big fan of deep bedding for pigs and chickens for quite a while. I don't have much experience with goats, very little, but a little, or cows. Pretty much just pigs and chickens. And with pigs and chickens, pigs especially, in the spring and the fall, you've got to get them off your pastures. At least up here in Maine, we have mud season in the spring, and you have a heavy rains that you typically come in the fall. And if the pigs go out there, say in the fall, and they destroy all the vegetation, there's not enough time for that grass to bounce back, and then you have bare soil, and it can all wash away. Same thing in the spring. If you put them out too soon, basically from when the ground is thawing until that fresh new green growth is coming up, you can really delay that green growth coming back up. And again, with all the snow melt coming off and all the spring rains, you can just have a lot of erosion, runoff, and all your nutrients are just leaving the farm. So I've really been a fan of deep bedding. We put them in the hoop house and we load it down with wood chips, especially because we can get them for free in bulk, and they're amazing. They're gigantic carbon complex that has lots of structure, lots of oxygen, does not break down very easily. And if you have something like pigs that have a high manure load, it's perfect for capturing all that. So I'll mix in sawdust, leaves, straw, hay even. We'll even use whatever I can get my hands on that's carbon. So last year, we had the pigs. Last winter, we had pigs, and they were inside the hoop house all through the winter. And then, come spring, we moved them out. And I never did a follow-up video on it. But I'll just take you through the hoop house now. As you can see now, there's nothing in here. Just a real thin, small bedding here of wood chips, a little bit of soil, straw. Some areas have more straw than others, where the chickens have been scraping up and knocking the bale and twine off of my straw. Before, the deep bedding was pretty high. The farther back down here we went, I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, we actually had it almost to the top of the doors. And you can almost see a dark line right there where the manure is piled right up to the top. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. Because the pigs like to go to the bathroom in the same spot. So down at this end was where their primary bathroom was. And down at the other end is where their kitchen was. So their bathroom down here. Of course, they'd go to the bathroom once in a while in all the other spots. And every time they would, we'd cover more wood chips and sprinkle some corn. Everything would get turned around. And they're always grubbing and rooting in all over the place. But at the end of the last winter, after the pigs were in here, you probably still see some remnants here from the ground coming up. It was easily up in this neighborhood, a couple feet off the ground. All the doors, we couldn't open them. It was kind of a hassle. I think in here, they tend to use this bathroom. So you can see where the wood is discolored, where the manure just built up. Super high, a couple feet thick, and it was just really, really built up. And part of that is every time they go to the bathroom, especially in one heavy area, we're adding some type of carbon to it. Mostly wood chips. And they're great at capturing nitrogen, but they are slow to break down. But they do work really well, and they're free. More than we could ever use. And hopefully they never stop coming. The downside to having them in the hoop house is clean it out. Like in this situation, this whole hoop house is really designed for our sows. When our sows would come into an individual pen, we could put them in here. The sow would have her piglets. And you're looking at like maybe 8 weeks that they're in here, and then we're moving them out to other places. The cleanup was pretty easy because they're only in here for 8 weeks or so. Last winter we got stuck where winter came quick, and we kind of had to move them someplace and get them off the pastures because it was so muddy, and they all came in here. And so it built up a lot. So that the cleanup, when we finally got to it, like that one pen I just showed you was several feet thick, it's shoveling it all by hand out into the alleyway. And then once it was in the alleyway, we get the tractor in here, open up the doors, shovel it all up, no big deal. And a lot of what we did was just for throughout the summer was we'd shovel it over, and then it would get turned up even more and put it in the center and spray down some water and just let it compost for a while. It would be crazy hot in here. Both ends would be opened. The sidewalls would be open, tons of ventilation. And we just let it kind of compost in here. Take a couple hours a day, do one bay, and go about that process. And it wasn't so bad. But if you're doing deep bedding, think of that at the end. You either got to clean the manure out every day or every couple of days, or you do it all at once. And for me, I just found it's easier to do it all at once, especially if I'm not in a rush and I can kind of do it at my leisure, then it's not so bad. You just add a couple hours to your day every now and again. I'm going to take you down to the Sow House, our other little hoop house down here. So our other hoop house down here is just an open-ended hoop house. We start with a huge layer of wood chips and then rolled a bunch of round bales of hay into the door entryway. so that the block all the winds coming through. And then the sows would tear it apart and spread it. You can see there's still a pretty substantial pile of hay sitting there. If I can find a scale, up there, it's highest over there. It's about up to the 3rd board up there. I think those boards, if I remember right, are 10 inches. It's about 30 inches high. It doesn't look like that because there's a lot of residue here. But as we go to the back over here, right now we're just using it for some storage and some old vines where the squashes have grown up from last year. Yeah, as we get down here, you can start to see where we're down to bare soil, where some of that's a little bit of erosion from the pigs coming around and walking through there. But when we started, it was pretty much level to that bottom of that board. And so now, at the very highest peak, we've got about 30 inches or so, thereabouts, in a big mound. And really, I've just let it stay here. We don't have any pigs coming right off. It's going to be a little while because we're kind of scaling back just for a little bit. Probably what we'll do is, this one is much easier to clean because the bays are open. I can just come in here with the tractor when there's no animals. Probably sometime this summer, I'll come out here with the hose and start spraying it all down. Because one of the downsides is you don't get any moisture up here, especially when the pigs are gone. There's no urine, there's no manure. So if I come through here with the hose and I start spraying all this down, then there's water, then all that dry manure and all the carbon in the straw and the hay that is here will start actually breaking down compost. What I'll probably do is come through with my tractor and start shoveling up into one big pile, basically make it into a big windrow, let it keep composting down. We're likely to have less erosion issues, like our nutrients in our compost leaching away because it will be undercover, and we can just have this really nice little composting area. If I had pigs coming sooner and I need this space, I'd probably clean it up and put all fresh stuff down. But for the most part, right now I don't have that concern, so it can just sit here and it's pretty inert. All the nutrients are tied up and they're bound right in this pile. They're not going anywhere. So it's just future fertility that's eventually going to go to our crops, go to our fruit trees, wherever we need it. So it's a great way to go. Deep bedding can really save a lot of labor, especially if you're looking at trying to shovel out a stall daily. Some type of structure, if you can get equipment in or just access it, there's a lot of benefits to it. So I probably should have taken a video of it earlier to show like kind of the progress of where things were at. But for now, this is a system that I like. Daily chores and daily maintenance, any task you have to do every single day can get pretty old. It doesn't give a lot of flexibility. So anytime that I can incorporate a system where the animals are contributing work, when they're turning over the soil, my inputs are like a big input of wood chips, and there's a period of time before I do another big input of it. And when I take it out, it's like a big chunk of time. I can do a lot at once. Versus having to do it every single day, that eats up so much time and just nickel and dimes your life away. But depending on what your situation's like, if you've got a small area and you've got to shovel it up every day, so be it. So it just depends on what you're working with. But that's what we've done so far. I could put the animals back in here just as it is and let them keep turning over like when we get them, and that'd be perfectly fine. Usually I like to start pretty fresh, the way I've always kind of done it, have a period of time, because if something should happen, the animals in there longer, the deep bedding could build up so much that I could be going up the side of the walls. And one problem I'll run into with the pigs is if this gets up way too high, now they're nibbling and rubbing against the plastic. So that's something to watch out for. If you're going to design a deep bedding system or a building to hold it, I've seen a lot of folks that have used concrete blocks, like the big ones, like the Jersey barriers almost, and go up kind of high to account for all of that manure and that buildup. And I think that's a really good idea. It was more cost than I wanted to put in when I first started. But for my scale, this has worked out really good. It's the cheapest way to get into it for the longest benefit overall. And it fits our system of management perfectly. So one thing about this hoop house here is it does tend to have a ton of hay because I bring in those round bales of hay. And so it can get matted and go anaerobic super easy. When the pigs are in here and they're active and they're turning it over, sometimes I'll sprinkle some corn or some seeds or what have you, and it'll sift down through and they'll go in, they'll munch away at it and they'll turn it over, and that does help. Some old squashes and those seeds drop through and that kind of stuff, and they love it. It does mat down quite a bit, right? Get some moisture in there, mostly just dust coming up right now. And as you get down there deeper and deeper, it starts to get pretty compacted, especially as it gets wet. Hey, I'll use anything carbon. I don't really care. Anything I can get my hands on. But there's that trade-off with hay that it will work, but it can mat down. And straw can too to a certain degree. But hay is really bad about just kind of matting. No oxygen gets in and goes anaerobic. And later on, when you're trying to shovel it up, you can smell that nitrogen being released, and it's kind of a mess, and it can be hard on the bucket trying to scoop it all up. And my advice on that would just be to add lots of wood chips. Because a lot of wood chips will add a lot of structure to the whole pile and make it way easier come cleanup time. Plus, if you have someone that likes to go to the bathroom a lot, like pigs, it'll really help capture as much of that nitrogen as possible so it's not being volatilized to the atmosphere where you can smell it. It's being captured in a stable matrix with all that carbon. I like people that can come on my farm and don't even realize there's pigs here. I mean, at the moment there's not. But even when we're at max capacity of pigs, people can't even smell them because I'm very, very particular about making sure that if I'm smelling ammonia, if I'm smelling manure, it means I'm losing nitrogen to the air. And that could be nitrogen that I could be putting on my crops or my fields or back onto the land. So I'm kind of a fiend for carbon anytime I can get it. And the Hoop House deep bend system is just a great way to capture all that manure and then have it for later and capture all that energy and nutrients. So, all right, I'm not done yet. Kind of all over the map today. But usually, once I've pulled out all of my bedding out of the barns, sometimes it has to get pulled out before it's composted all the way. If I can let it sit there and compost, I will. It's that much less to have to tractor. Just like if you have to go to the barn every day and shovel it out, that back and forth, that you lose time in the turns. You know, all that time, that travel going back and forth. Same thing with the tractor. If I have to take a bucket load of manure and I have to go from that hoop house up there or that other one over there, tractor it around, come all the way down through here and all the way to our big compost pile, all that travel time it just costs me gas and costs me time. And so the less I have to move, the better. So the more I can compost in the building, I will. However, we do have a big stockpile here of compost and manure from last year. So I'm probably going to be losing some for sure as it goes out, just from natural leaching. I can't really help that, but we've got a bit of a buffer going on here. So at least all the grasses around here go crazy and love it. And I've got the coyotes have been up here. We get some scraps from stores, so there's some green material, onion peels, that have you. There's a rib cage from the deer that I shot last year. I'll compost anything. I'm not using this for commercial crops. I'm just using it for myself. And all those bones, hides from animals, everything's going to break down eventually. And so those bones are all a source of minerals that eventually will just get worked right through the cycle. They'll either go on to fruit trees and the crops. They're going to go someplace back on the land, just back on the pastures where it can be used again. But basically, this is going to sit here, and there's stumps in there. So usually every year I'll come through, start topping everything off with more compost. Hershey likes compost pile because he finds all kinds of bones. What do you got there? Shoulder blade? You got yourself a little shoulder blade? What do you got? Yeah, you look pretty happy. What's up, little kitten? So usually whenever I'm bringing stuff out of the barn, I'm bringing more wood chips as well and just trying to offset any loss of leaching of the compost with more carbon. I'd almost rather have it sit here in a stable matrix longer and cold compress than not. Usually whenever we pull it out of the barn and throw it out here, it fires right up 140, 150 degrees. It's cranking, it's cooking. Then after that, sometimes things get layered onto it as we go, usually just as we have it. I probably could be a little bit more intensive about it and deliberate in the future for sure. But for now, sometimes there's only so many hours in a day. So we found just putting it out here. Then if I need some, I come scoop it up, turn it specifically, maybe in a small area to get some usable compost manure that I need, and put it on the gardens and put it where we need it. That's the system that's worked good for us. You get a bone? Hey, what you got? I see you. All right, you guys have a little bone? Yeah. So that's basically an update on our deep bedding system. We load up the hoop houses, lots of organic matter to offset and try to compensate for all that nitrogen being dropped by the animals. And then we'll compost it in place if we can. If not, we'll haul it all out, compost it outside, and see if we can't capture and recycle all those nutrients for other things we want, fruits and veggies. So that's it. If you get any other questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer and see what you guys are up to. Get some other ideas. Thanks a lot. Best of luck out there. Bye.